She spoke truth to power in Louisiana and paid the price. You ever meet someone who changes the way you see the world? Like not just inspires you for a moment, but truly makes you look at yourself and ask, am I doing enough? That was Miss Gloria Sanders for me. I met her by chance. I wasn't looking for anything special, just visiting family in a small Louisiana town to catch my breath from city life. Life in New Orleans had been weighing me down. Too much noise, too much rush. I needed something quieter, something real. My cousin told me, "You gotta meet Miss Gloria. She's a legend in these parts, for better or worse." He said it with a chuckle, but there was something in his voice. Respect, maybe a little fear too. So one afternoon, we walked over to her place. Humid air wrapped around us like a wet blanket, and the sun sat heavy in the sky. Her house was nothing fancy. Paint peeling from the wood siding, porch steps creaking under our feet. Wind chimes hanging off the gutter sang a lazy, tired tune. She answered the door like she'd been expecting us. "You're here to ask questions," she said, looking straight at me. "Ain't you?" I just nodded. "Then come on in." I got tea. And that's how I met the most courageous woman I've ever known. Miss Gloria was in her early 70s then, but her presence filled the room like thunder. She wasn't loud, but her words carried weight. She moved slow, but her spirit never sat still. Every word she spoke was soaked in purpose. Over the next 2 hours, she poured her story into me like it was something holy. She grew up in that same town, went off to college, when few black girls from there ever did, came back because she believed her people, her students, deserved better than what the world was giving them. She became a history teacher at the local high school. For nearly 20 years, she taught the truth, not just the sanitized textbook version, but the full, complicated, beautiful, painful truth. She taught about Harriet Tubman and Malcolm X, about the Tulsa Massacre and Reconstruction. She made her students ask questions. She made them think. She showed them that their history didn't begin with chains and didn't end with Martin Luther King's dream. At first, the school tolerated her. Barely. But the more she taught, the more the board started pushing back. One year, she included a unit on the Black Panthers. Another year, she asked the kids to interview their grandparents about segregation in their own town. A white parent wrote a letter of complaint, saying their child came home feeling guilty. The board called her in, warned her to stick to the curriculum. She didn't listen, couldn't. She said, "If our children don't learn the truth from us, they'll learn lies from someone else." Then came the meeting that changed everything. The school board was voting to remove a book from the curriculum. The Souls of Black Folk by W.E.B. Du Bois said it was too radical, too controversial. Miss Gloria stood up at that meeting, in front of a room full of people who wanted her gone, and said, "You want our children to believe they're lucky to be here instead of knowing they belong here. You want them to swallow a lie about this country and thank you for it. I won't be part of that." The room fell silent. Then came the pushback. She didn't get fired right away. They were smarter than that. They stripped her of her favorite class. They moved her to the smallest classroom in the school. They took away her advisor role for the Black Student Union. They watched her every move, and still, she taught. Then one day, a student, a black boy named Andre, told her he'd been called a racial slur in the hallway. He said when he reported it, nothing happened. Miss Gloria brought it up at the next staff meeting. She didn't just mention it. She demanded answers, action, protection for her kids. A week later, they fired her. The letter said she had created a divisive environment, that she had failed to promote unity at the school. What they really meant was, she made them uncomfortable. She told the truth when they wanted silence. After that, things got worse. People stopped speaking to her at the grocery store. Church friends pretended not to see her. Some of her own neighbors turned away like she was carrying something contagious. She got hate mail. Once, someone egged her house in the middle of the night. But Miss Gloria, she never bent. Not once. She told me, "They can take my job, but they can't take my voice." And so she kept speaking. Every Sunday, she invited neighborhood kids to her porch for what she called freedom lessons. She used old books, printed pages from the internet, and whatever material she could afford on her fixed income. Sometimes only 2 or 3 kids showed up, sometimes a dozen. They'd sit on folding chairs and listen to her talk about truth, resistance, power. She made it real for them. She made it matter. One day, I asked her how she stayed so strong. It was late afternoon, the sky painted with that soft orange glow that only Louisiana sunsets can give. We were sitting on her porch, the same porch where she taught those Sunday lessons, where children gathered and truth echoed off the wooden rails. I looked at her, this woman who had lost so much, been betrayed by people she once called friends, cast out by a town she gave her life to, and I just had to ask, "Miss Gloria, how do you do it? How do you keep going when so much has been taken from you?" She didn't answer right away. She just looked out across her yard, at the tall grass swaying in the breeze, at the chipped steps of her porch, at that little hand-painted sign nailed crooked above the railing, the one that said, "Truth lives here." Then she said, in a voice soft but steady, "When you've buried friends who were killed for marching, when you've watched the news and seen your people shot down, locked up, forgotten, when you've been denied jobs, homes, dignity, not because you weren't qualified, not because you didn't try, but just because of the color of your skin, you learn not to be afraid anymore." She turned her eyes back to me, those same eyes that had stared down school boards and shouted injustice into silence. "Fear ain't new to us," she said, "but neither is courage." She leaned back in her chair, the wood creaking under her, and for a moment, the only sound was the rustling of the wind chimes and the faint laughter of children playing down the street. Then she added, her voice lower now, almost like a prayer, "I just wish people understood. I didn't do all this because I hate anyone. That's what they always say, that telling the truth means you hate the people who caused the pain. But it's not hate. Not at all." She looked down at her hands, worn, calloused, gentle, and said, "I did this because I love my people. I love our future. I wanted those kids in my class to know they come from strength, from beauty, from brilliance. I wanted them to walk into this world knowing they belong in it, not begging for space, but owning it. That's why I fought. Not for anger, but for love." My throat tightened. I didn't know what to say. Sometimes silence is the only thing honest enough to hold that kind of truth. Miss Gloria passed away last year, quietly, in her sleep. No big headline, no television crew, no fancy memorial. Just a few friends, a faded photo in the paper, and a town still too proud to speak her name out loud. But if you drive past that old house now, the one with the crooked fence and the broken mailbox, you'll still see that little wooden sign hanging from her porch. Truth lives here. And let me tell you something. Every time I find myself afraid to speak up, every time I'm tempted to shrink myself to fit into rooms that were never built for me, every time the world tries to convince me that my voice is too loud, too angry, too much, I remember her. I hear her voice in the back of my mind, calm, strong, unshaken. She spoke truth to power in Louisiana, and she paid the price. But what she gave the world, what she left behind in every student she taught, every child she mentored, every soul she touched, that can't be erased. That doesn't fade, because truth doesn't die with the person who speaks it. It lives on, in all of us brave enough to carry it forward.